Well, hello everybody. My name is Dave Bila. I want to welcome you to this new edition of News and Views, broadcast by Access LaPorte County on Public Access TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, and national topics and issues of interest to the Michigan City and surrounding area. Opinions are the views and responsibilities of making the comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its co-producers. Yet in forget it. We will adhere to broadcast rules, but absolutely no one's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. Any unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program without the express written consent of us three, strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy discussing the program and the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a little under the weather. If you haven't noticed, I didn't wear a shirt today. I wore a sweatshirt because I'm cold. Gentlemen, the program is yours.
I thought you had a few comments. None? That was it?
That was it. That was it.
Well, let me start off because we're sitting between winter and summer. And so as I walked out of the house, my wife said, "Oh, that's a great getup you got on." And I'm looking at it thinking, looks like Halloween to me. And she said, "Oh, no, black for winter, orange for summer. We're right in the middle. So I guess if my wife goes along with it, it's good."
Look what we got here, the Rainbow Experience.
Yeah, no. But I also want to point out that this is now available. You can get it at restaurants and a number of other places. They're set up outside, but it's the Michigan City LaPorte Guide, has in it all sorts of activities that are going to go on this summer. You can do something not only every weekend, you can do something during the week and on the weekends. Also talks about the places to eat, where all sorts of dining, all the way from hamburgers to frog legs to ahu tuna, whatever you would like. Fantastic. So as a result of that, pick one of these up, and you can look up various things to do, and I think you'll appreciate it once you get it. Tony was nice enough to give me this chart, but I'm going to talk about this chart because basically what it does is tells you in a nutshell what Trump is trying to accomplish. But wherever he got this information from,
ZeroHedge.com.
Okay.
It's on a website called Statista.com.
Well, what it starts out with was China's manufacturing output in the year 1980 was just right around 5%. In the year 2023, they were up to 29% of the world's manufacturing output. Now, in that same year in 1980, we were approximately 21% of the global manufacturing output throughout the world. We're now down to 17.2%. If we continue on that line down, in the next 5 to 10 years, we will not be able to support ourselves, nor will we be able to defend ourselves. This has got to change. Trump has figured this out, and that's what he's attempting to do. So when you hear about all the tariffs and the ups and downs, keep in mind that ultimately the important thing that comes out of this is we increase our manufacturing capabilities throughout the United States. And I have one place that I think LaPorte County really ought to be looking. Number one, they ought to be looking at what Trump says. Because generally what he says he will do. Now it might get modified, it might get changed around, but he's going to do it. And one of the things that he has talked about is we have to bring back to the U.S. steel, which we've done a good job of, copper and aluminum. Copper and aluminum are a totally different story from steel. But the thing I like about aluminum is it can be used in so many manufacturing processes, i.e. aeronautics, i.e. automobile manufacturing, and a number of others. And it's been my thought process that LaPorte County and the Economic Development Commissions of both Michigan City and LaPorte ought to be looking at an aluminum smelter for the old Kingsbury Industrial Facility. Now, the reason I said that is just a little research, not what Tony did, but what I kind of did on my own. He's a better researcher than I am. If you went back to the year 2000, in the United States, we had 24 aluminum smelters. Right now, we have 4. The capacity is there because of the aluminum usage, that we need to establish an aluminum smelter and the Kingsbury Industrial Facility would be a very good place to start for LaPorte County. I also like a couple of other things in terms of what our Economic Development Commission should be working on. But to me, that would be a good place to start. The next place I think they have to start is getting on or getting with our school system. We can no longer have and expect these people to be able to make a living in the society that will be here. But it is coming. We will get back manufacturing, but it's going to be at a much higher level. The smelter, if it gets there, that you will see in Kingsbury Industrial Park, will be significantly more operated by robots and by other types of highly technical welding and so on and so forth. We're going to need workers, but not the kinds of workers that we needed 50 years ago. We're going to need workers that are highly trained, that could work with this kind of equipment, that when it goes down can get it fixed and understand how you process with these types of situations. But I strongly urge that our Economic Development Commission and our school board get together and whatever they can do to have summer school for these people that are not working at grade level, they have to do it, and they have to make sure that they are getting these kids in school. And I would go back to the era of truant officers. Maybe you use the school's vice principals, but somebody has to be going to their parents if they don't show up and say, look, you're going to have to get that kid in school, and if you don't, we're going to charge you with child neglect. Tony, you're out.
Yeah, that's a good chart, and that was last week. This week, well, just yesterday, maybe this morning too, Walmart announced that some of their suppliers with the tariffs or Chinese tariff are going way up and things are going to cost, and they don't think Walmart has told them we don't want to pass that to the customer. You're going to have to absorb that cost. And Walmart realized that probably wasn't going to work out. So yesterday, I believe, Walmart announced that they're going to help their suppliers or their manufacturers to onshore their capabilities, manufacturing or whatever. So Walmart
onshore here in the United
States. Walmart is helping these people come to America, and we've seen this. I watched an old special. I believe it was in the 80s when Honda announced they were going to make cars in Maryland, Ohio, and everyone thought, well, there's no way we can use American workers to make the quality vehicles that Honda expects. And they did, and actually they surpassed it. The quality of those Honda vehicles coming out of Maryland, Ohio were better than the quality of Honda vehicles coming out of Japan with our own workers. So Walmart has realized that they could onshore in the United States because Trump is telling, if you don't, you're going to pay huge, huge tariffs. So they're moving in. And the other thing, which dovetails exactly, I didn't know I was going to go to KIP, but Kingsbury Industrial Park, which used to be Kingsbury Ordnance Park for the war, set up to make weapons.
Kingsbury Ordnance Facility
for weapons. There was a study done that if America got into a full-fledged war, World War, whatever, huge war, they would have a few weeks of weapons. Now, I believe Trump and the Senate and the House are spending lots of money on building back defense. So we maybe, and I'm not talking about heavy weapons, maybe with some kind of weapons manufacturer back in the Kingsbury Industrial Park, because that's what it was designed for. We're not talking about nuclear missiles or mega bombs, but some sort of casing or some sort of parts in there, and it's already made for that. It's already got the rail for that. They add more rail is finishing up. So maybe we need to look at, and we need to make sure we don't not look at possible weapons manufacturing in Kingsbury Industrial Park, because there's going to be money poured at it, and that is definitely a United States manufacturing arena that we should look at, because it can make good jobs, good money, guaranteed money through the defense fund, and we'd all be happy.
Yeah, and on that point, Tony, it's my understanding that all those buildings out to the Kingsbury Industrial Plant, the long rows of brick buildings are lead-lined.
Lead-lined and super thick and spread out in case one goes bad.
So there's not going to be any construction expense if that policy is applied, because the structures are in place. We just need to implement.
And they have rail going to each one of those structures.
That is correct.
And they're set up for ordnance manufacturing, weapons manufacturing. We don't have to have the same kind of weapons in World War I and World War II, but we could have some kind of manufacturing in there that would be a bonus industry, because that industry is kind of protected, right? It doesn't really go up much and down, up or down, but right now it's going to go way up. So we ought to look at maybe some of those people, because you look at other industrial plant parks and look all across America that they had in World War II, but most of them are gone. They're not there anymore. And we have one of the few that's still left. We should utilize it in every way possible. The other thing that came up this week was steel prices, according to the mills, are way up, and they are happy. Of course, they're happy. They're selling more and making more profit of steel. We, on the other hand, are going to have to pay more steel. The last thing I had is Whirlpool had an announcement 2 days ago that they are very happy with the tariffs, because they're an American manufacturing company, and they're loving it. People are going to buy their stuff, and people are starting to try to come back to manufacturing. That was the point of that chart, that America kind of stayed even, 17%, a slow loss in manufacturing in the world, but Japan just skyrocketed. And I saw that chart and I thought, well, in my mind, I thought China was really coming up to a speed back in the 70s. It's not true. China really came on somewhere around 2005 with the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement.
Yes, when we allowed them to do that through various trade agreements, many of which they violated.
Trans-Pacific Partnership, I think it was, under the Bush administration, and everyone said that's what happened, and that's actually what happened. China came on strong. The North America Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, Mexico and Canada really came on strong, and we seem to suffer the brunt of it in our manufacturing. So I don't know what's going to happen now, but I hope something good's going to happen with jobs.
What percentage of our national products that we use is manufactured from China? What percentage?
I don't know. That was just a global manufacturing output chart.
Well, first of all, to make that decision, you would have to say, do we want to? Are we looking at products shipped directly from China, or are we look at the way China circumvents the trade rules by sending the first parts of various assemblies to Mexico and to Canada? They put the assemblies together in Mexico and Canada, then they ship them here, and we do the last part of it, which is to assemble all of those components which have been put together either in China and shipped to Mexico or Canada, and then, because it says Canadian manufacturer or Mexico manufacturer on it, you don't really see the fact that most of it was done in China, transshipped there, and then transshipped in the United States. So not a lot that comes directly from China. The transshipments are a whole lot different, probably over 50 to 60%.
Oh, yeah.
Of the items that we use are technically started in China.
Yeah, we might manufacture a Honda in Marysville, Ohio, but at least 50% of those components are not made in America.
Well, yeah, they start in China, they go to Mexico or Canada, then they come in here from there. But a good example of that is fentanyl, which Trump has been really down on. But fentanyl, the precursors, the pre-parts of fentanyl, the pre-chemicals, are shipped to Mexico. They're assembled in Mexico and then brought into the United States from there. And that's a huge problem.
They're refined in Mexico and made into fentanyl and then find their way here. But I guess this show is all budget. So today came out and it says it happened, Northwest Indiana Times, and it happened early Friday morning. The state General Assembly passed their budget. They passed the budget, the House and the Senate, and they put this really neat PowerPoint thing out, which you can download from their website, and lots of things on here. I saw it on Hometown News Now, where Representative Pat Boy, got to give kudos to her. She hit the nail on the head on this one, and she voted against the budget, and I think she was right to vote against the budget, because here's her quote: "I cannot fathom the irreparable damage this year's budget will have on our education systems. Our universities attract thousands of bright students every year and teach them vital skills they can contribute to our state. Instead of fostering these educational environments to provide our young people with opportunities to prosper, the majority has decided to slash their funding." Now, that's really not completely true. But her point was, we have cut the budget in Indiana, and these are all Republican votes. Republican Senate, Representative, Republican Governor. And I believe we have changed the state of Indiana to do the rainy day fund to $3 billion instead of $2 billion. But her quote says, I'm looking, oh yeah, the quote says that we slashed funding. Again, that's not quite true. They put together a chart and they say that they have increased the funding for K through 12, which they did, from $9.37 billion to $9.65 billion. So they did increase the funding. But my qualm is that if we have a budget surplus, and they have these really nice charts, if we have a budget surplus in Indiana, because we do things very well here, we try to keep our administrative low, and we have budget surpluses. This is 20-year chart approximately. You see budget surpluses except for 4 years, and we had deficits. And the biggest one, well, the second to biggest is, the first biggest is 2010, which was the housing boom, right? The housing bust. 2020, the COVID bust. That was $900 million in 2010, $882 million in 2020. I've said this many times. I've said this publicly. I've said this privately. Why is the state holding $2 billion in reserve? And they produced this chart that says the worst possible times we've had, we've never had more than $1 billion shortfall. So they're holding between $1 and $2 billion of our money, which I agree with Pat Boy, and kudos to her, because she said it in another article. She said some other comments. Why are they holding billions of our dollars in the state of Indiana for some, I don't know what data they have, but it's not the data they're showing us, for a rainy day that never comes. And this is 20 years of data. So at a minimum, and Bob should probably jump in, and Dave probably too, that $1 or $2 billion better be earning interest, because I just looked up the Trust Indiana. Look up the Trust Indiana Fund. It's a fund set up by the state of Indiana that local governments, communities, and municipalities can put their money into, and they can take it out whenever they want, and they earn 4.2% interest right now. So if they got $2 billion sitting around and we ain't taking 4.2% interest, foolish. Why are we taking tax money? Because if they needed tax more, they would take more tax money. I don't want the state to go in the red or not pay its bills, but we just showed you, and the state of Indiana showed us through this document, it's never been over $1 billion. The shortfall's never been over $1 billion. And we just increased it to $3 billion. I'm not sure, but that's why I know it was $2 billion. And what I had read lately was they're going to increase it to $3 billion. We got to stop this money. Interest, maybe. Education, definitely. Entice some other businesses to come here. Maybe some money, because the city's spending, what, redevelopment is looking, I believe, $4 million to put some infrastructure in for new development. That's good infrastructure. That's a money maker. To sit on billions of dollars for a rainy day fund, and it's raining today, but a rainy day fund that never rains? I don't get it. I am completely lost. I don't know why, and I know the representatives and senators will tell you it's 14% of the total budget or something like that, or it can only run the government for like 40 days. And those are good numbers, but according to their own document, it's never happened. Why would we prepare for something that's never happened?
Well, let me throw out a couple of counterpoints. Not totally, because maybe that $2 billion figure, if you take into account inflation, and remember we had a really high inflation rate for several years,
lately.
That would have significantly taken effect, and we're going to pay for those in inflated dollars. So I really don't have a problem with the $2 billion. And I agree that it should be kept in an account that is governmentally approved, governmentally responsible, that we can get 4% or more as a result of that. But I would like to see us, now Pat Boy was talking about our universities. I would like to go lower than that, into our public school system, starting with the first or second grade and going up through our high school level. And allocate on a grant basis to make sure that they do this to school systems that have a significant number of kids not up to grade level. They can apply for the grants and use them to pay for summer school, to make sure that these kids who are not up to grade level are in class. And if they are not in class, again, as I mentioned before, we need truant officers, just like the day and age that Dave and I came out of.
My age too. We had
Okay.
truant officers.
And I'm saying that maybe it ought to be the vice principals. But they need to go to these parents' house and let them know that if those kids are not in school, the parents will be looking at some type of a mishandling of the child, not properly teaching the child, and this will go to court because they are not protecting their child for the future. You have to get these kids up to grade level 12 when they graduate high school, grade level 10 when they are a sophomore in high school. And that is almost imperative in order to be able to understand the curriculums that and the knowledge that they're going to have to live with throughout the rest of their life. When I say knowledge that they're going to have to live with throughout the rest of their lives, what I mean by that is the ability to study knowledge as it changes throughout the rest of their lives.
I've got a question, Bob and Tony. Maybe you guys have an answer. How
We
much?
got an answer. We don't guarantee it.
How
We'll
much-
give you an answer?
How much of an impact does the $38 trillion national debt have on the state of Indiana? Again, when we have all of this deficit spending that materialized over a period of years, eventually the feds are going to say, hey, we got to look for some money.
Let me
And-
put it
Think
this
about
way.
it.
Well,
No.
let me put it this way, and then Tony can disagree with me or
Oh,
agree
that's
with
a
me
good
or
question.
partially agree with me.
Just think about it.
Number one, it doesn't really impact the state. Who it impacts are the citizens of the state, because we're the ones that have to pay the federal income tax to pay the interest on that, along with some of the principal. It's going to be like trying to get down principal when you're so far in debt that you can't even basically make the interest payments to start to pay on the
So
principal.
regardless of the political,
Yeah, it's not going to be a problem for the state. It's a problem for everybody that lives
that
in
is correct.
state.
Now, regardless of whether you got an R or a D or independent on your forehead, ladies and gentlemen, that $38 trillion national debt, it ain't going away.
Yeah, so there's lots to that one. It has some effect on us because we pay taxes. It also has an effect on us because Indiana, at some point, gives money to the federal government, right?
Yeah.
So we bring
Well,
in
not much.
$22.2 billion a year, and that's their revenue forecast. And some of that is going to the federal government, and then we try to get it back in grants or appropriations or whatever. But it's twofold, and in my opinion, it's kind of a game of chicken. So we owe $38 trillion.
I'm guessing, but
Yeah.
we're pretty close.
38 trillion. The baby boomers, according to reports, have $70 trillion in assets. So some, I believe most economists think that we're fine because these people have 70 trillion and we're only 38 trillion, so we're still okay. But it's not going to work out very well. But then we have to look in the past, and I can't go, in my world, I can't go past the late 70s, into the 80s, into the 90s, 2010, 2020, about every 10 years, we drive up big deficits, and then somebody like Trump comes along, tightens the belt, it hurts a little, sometimes it hurts a lot, and then we reduce those deficits really, really low. We get on this path of we're going to have money left over in a few years.
Clinton,
Clinton, he balanced the budget.
And what was the main focus of that election between Al Gore and George W. Bush? He kept saying lockbox. We're going to take the money we have, which they had a surplus, and we're going to put it in a lockbox. Never going to happen. Politicians' worst drug is money. So that just withered away because then we jacked up the home prices and we fell into a big pit with the home bust. And then Obama tried to spend our way pretty much into increasing the economy out of the bust of the 2008 crisis. And then we just kept going on for there. Now we've rolled into 38 trillion. Trump had it. He lowered interest rates way low. The economy was going good. It was going too good, actually, too hot. You can't have an economy that hot. And our deficits started decreasing, and then we started spending more money. So now we're going to have an administration that tries to reduce that trajectory of deficits, and I think it will work for a period, but we always seem to swing back into more deficits.
One of the issues when I was on the council back in the 80s was deficit spending.
Oh, it's
and,
huge.
and we back then tightened our belt here in the city of Michigan City, as well as I believe in the state of Indiana. But somehow that concept flew in a direction of whichever the wind blew.
It flew away when we got the casino.
Yeah.
The city had tightened its belt, and
Yep.
they had to.
Yep.
And so did the county, and so did LaPorte City. Everyone tightened their belt, and they were living within their means. It wasn't fun. Roads weren't getting paved. Things weren't getting done. Parks weren't getting done, and it wasn't pretty. So we survived.
It was an issue that we adhered to.
And the councils tightened their budget, and then the casino came, and we get 10 million a year. We just spent it like it was wild sailor. And if you look back, suppose you look back 20 years, I was wrong, Bob. 20 years times 10 million is $200 million. So we could have had $250 million. The Indiana Trust Fund is a trust fund that all governments are approved to put their money in. It's not like Horizon but they're good banks. They're not private banks where you're not guaranteed, and neither are the Indiana Trust Fund, but it's an approved fund. You can't just take public money and invest it in CDs or something like you want. Your buddy gets a CD. That's not possible. You can take your money and put it in the Indiana Trust Fund. It's an approved fund run by the state of Indiana just for that thing. And I just looked it up. It was 4.2%. If Michigan City would have taken $250 million and put it in today's number, and that number's been lower and that number's been higher, at 4%, say it's 5% for rounding numbers, that's what, $12 million a year
Yeah,
in interest alone. So $250 million, 10% is $25 million, half of that's $12 million. So we would be getting $10 million a year, Michigan City, if we had held our belts tightened, $10 million a year from now till eternity in interest alone. It'd go up and down a little bit. Our budget's $50 million, I believe. So, and then we keep putting the $10 million for casino, because there's a day that casino's not going to be here. And again, Michigan City's going to have to tighten its belt, and it's not going to be fun. I was in the LaPorte County government. It wasn't fun. Kudos to the LaPorte County Council. They held their belt tight. They still hold their belt tight. And they took their casino money, and it's a growing fund. I don't think they put their casino money in the trust fund either, because they had surpluses, and they could earn 2, 3, 4, 5%. Something okay, so I want to go back to what Dave said. We have a $36 trillion budget. And if the federal government says, wait, Indiana's got $3 billion.
That's right.
They don't need any more money. They got $3 billion. That's exactly the problem. That if Michigan City would have held $250 million, I guarantee you the state would have said, oh, well, you guys got $250 million. At a minimum, they would have said, you don't need any money. You got $250 million. We're going to let you go on your own. We got other people we got to help. That's not fair either. At a maximum, they said, oh, you got $250 million. We need to have some of that. We need to take some of your money. They should, a good, conservative, Democrat, Republican should say, I'm going to set up a fund. If municipalities want to tighten their belt and save their money and spend the interest alone, we support that 100%. And we support it so much that we're going to take the $2 billion and we're going to stick it in the Indiana Trust Fund and earn 4%.
And this concept that Tony brought up isn't new.
We all live on that concept.
Yeah, my pet project, Michigan City Redevelopment Commission, sits on an annual budget of roughly about $15 million. They get $9 million a year through their TIF revenue. Okay, but they have $15 million setting in the bank. $15 million at 4.2% equates to how much a year?
About $3 million. About 300,000.
Yeah, 15 million times 4%. Yeah, about, well, you'd be looking 5%, half of that, 115 million, 150 million, about 75 million, 4%. Yeah.
Would
15 million times half is 7.5 million, or times 10% is 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Half of that's about 700,000.
Yeah.
Would that, now, again, it may be chump change to the city administration.
Wait. That's why we need kids in school to do that kind of math.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may be chump change to the city administration, but every little bit counts.
100,000 here, 100,000 there. Pretty soon
There
you're
are
talking about real money.
projects, right? They're a viable project, and this brings another thing that I read on the computer about the unemployment rate here in LaPorte County.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Lake County unemployment rate is 5.8%. LaPorte County is 5.1%, and yet here in Michigan City, supposedly we're a growing community. Why are there not jobs for shovel pushers? The individuals who might not necessarily be top-notch individuals, but they sure as heck can push a shovel.
When I was growing up, my father used to tell me, if you don't start getting those grades up, you're going to dig ditches. About 2 years ago, I had a couple of my grandkids pull into a filling station, and they had a backhoe with a jackhammer on it doing the ditches. We don't dig ditches anymore.
And they got paid a lot of money for
backhoes. Yes, to do that. Now we got to teach them to drive a backhoe. I agree with you, but they don't dig ditches anymore.
But that could be done through a jobs training program
Yes.
and apprenticeship program. There are a lot of laborers out there that are, again, resting on that shovel on their back porch because they don't know how to learn the ropes. Somebody has to, and in my mind, the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission should initiate some type of job program that would it'd be a funding mechanism for a training program such as that 15% that's available through the schools.
Yeah.
It could be a funding mechanism to train people. So you're a 20-year-old, and the only thing you know is your computer and a motorcycle, and you drive these hoops and hoops and hoops. Well, let's get them off the motorcycle and let's get them into a job training program.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I do hope they know something about motorcycles, because if they know something about motorcycles,
Well, that'd get them to work.
Ultimately, well, not only that, ultimately they're going to have to learn something about engines.
No, they don't. It's electric.
Absolutely.
It's electric motorcycle. We don't.
Yeah.
But
we don't need to shift them anymore.
And there is a resource out there at the high school level through its senior class that there may be a portion of those kids that are interested in pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and starting a job. I started my first job at 13 years old. Tony, you started early too. Bob, you started early too.
10 years
Well,
old.
I was 11. I was going on
10.
I was caddying at the Long Beach
What
Country.
motivated us, if not the state of the economy at that time?
Well, first of all, one of the things that hinders that is we, in many cases, will not let kids work
Yeah.
like they used to.
Yeah.
And that's where you learned a lot. I learned a whole heck of a lot between 11 and 16 at the Long Beach Country Club. Now it's my understanding that to work at the Long Beach Country Club, you have to be at least 16 years
Yeah.
old. You're not carrying golf bags. You're sitting in a cart driving the cart. It's changed a lot.
15
And that,
with a work permit.
to me, and it's detrimental.
Correct, a work permit.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, I guess I go back to if you're 10 years old and you're earning $5, $10, $20 a week, you're looking for some McDonald's or some bubble gums or some trading cards. When you're 15, you're looking for a car.
Yeah.
So
Well,
your wants have increased the price hundredfold.
You used to be. Now they're looking for a phone. But
Oh yeah, $1,000 phone. I guess you could do a $1,000 phone.
And an interesting thing I saw on TV, the individuals making application for electrical permits here in Michigan City. Most of those individuals are coming from southern part of Indiana, coming up here to make application. So somebody must know down there that there's something going on up here.
Yeah,
we
there's
had-
lots of jobs.
I
There's
think
a-
I saw a number that we have close to 800 individuals who are journeyman electricians from all over the country.
Correct.
That are working on the prison out there.
Or Amazon or
Yeah.
So what's wrong with some form of IBEW tried to initiate an electrical apprenticeship program, but not
Hey, I got a grandson that just went in for his first meeting.
great. Great.
Yeah.
yeah, the union houses do a really good job either between the AK Smith Center or Valparaiso or Ivy Tech in Valparaiso, trying to get young students, and they're even paying their school to get through carpentry or electricians or working at the mills. And these are good jobs. These are $80,000, $100,000, $120,000 full benefit retirement healthcare jobs. And they're finding a hard time that students would even show up, let alone when they get through it, show up for work. So I want to go back to Bob says that truancy officers need to go to people's houses, and I agree they should probably go to somebody's house, but I don't know about threatening them in jail. I believe that you incentivize, not penalize. So some of these, it's a good thing. Administrative people should go there and find out why the kid's not to school, and have the parents know that we're coming. If your kid's not in school, I'm coming to your door. And what do you need? What do you need? Do you need help? Do you need counseling? what do you need to help you to get this student to school? To go after them is, I think the last resort is we're going to go to court. But in any world, in any arena, if something's happening, the first thing you should ask is, what do you need me to help you facilitate to fix this? And the last resort is, you're going to jail because you obviously won't do anything. But if you incentivize them somehow, at a minimum, you know somebody's coming to your door if your kid's not showing up for school and knocking on your door or stopping to see you at work, you're going to think twice about letting that kid just sit at home.
Yeah.
And that's, at a minimum, that should be happening. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and back in my high school days, a motivating factor that kept me around high school was industrial arts.
Yes.
They taught you how to draw horizontal and vertical and angular lines and design buildings, and or in my case, the printing trade. They taught individuals about the California job case. This was, of course, before the era of computers. They taught Mr. Procol with the lathe. Mr. Procol had three fingers only because he lost the other two on his lathe. But the fact of the matter is, he was there informing the youth how to manipulate a lathe, and possibly some of those kids ended up working for Whirlpool.
I worked at Weil McLean when I was growing, before I was 18. I worked at Joe Sam. Both of those were, well, they had cupolas. It was a brass, what's the term I want to use? It's an iron foundry and a brass foundry. Weil McLean was an iron foundry, and Joe Sam was a brass foundry. I worked at those guys, walked around like this. But that was a symbol of, we've worked all our lives, and this is what we wound up with. That's not a dirty sign.
I mean, I thought AK Smith Center, I went to Auto Trades. It was awesome. I was intrigued by it. Whether you're working in electrical or carpentry or automotive, it was very intriguing, and it motivated me to learn lots of other things. But it made me happy that I got to choose those kind of industrial arts because I knew I liked them and I knew they were valuable.
Obviously,
I'm going to go back to what Tony said about how we spend this money, because I would like to see the state come up with $1 billion that they have potentially. But I want to see it done through grants, and I want those grants followed through. There are things that you can do for investments. You can obviously invest in education. You can make your citizens smarter through the educational process. You can invest in streets, in roads. You can invest in water systems, Department of Waterworks. You can invest in sanitation. Sanitation and water not only are good in terms of the way we live, they are also good from a health aspect. And the better you get in terms of sanitation systems, the better you use your drinking water, the better off we're going to be entirely. But like in a private company, a private corporation, you have to have people that make sure that those funds are getting properly spent, that they are not going to people who, oh, we're going to campaign for you if you give us this contract. That type of crap has got to go. So I agree with Tony that it needs to be spent, but it needs to be spent wisely. And there has to be auditors that come in and check that.
well, with 25% of one political party is at its low ebb, they have to find their identity.
23%.
23%.
Yeah. You went down over a month and a half.
That's the party that I represent, but I just wonder, what are they trying to accomplish? We should be unifying with this national debt. We should find ways to resolve the problem. And it seems like you make an attempt to make a proposal. I'm opposed to your proposal. I make an attempt. You oppose to my proposal. When are we going to arrive at the simple word of compromise and forget about this Mickey Mouse BS that's going around in our society, in today's society? It really makes me sick.
Yeah, and that's why I want to bring up Representative Pat Boyd, because she hit the nail on the head. We're not
Well,
we're not
quite,
saving
Tony.
money to save money.
Tony,
we need to
you can
spend-
disagree with me on this one. The thing that grabbed me was she talked about the university level. Our universities are doing well. They are doing extremely well. Indiana, Purdue, Indiana State, Southern Indiana University, they're all doing well. She's got that at the university level. I think it's got to be brought down to the first grade. They have done some studies to indicate that if you start school at the first grade level, now we're talking about kindergarten, If you start kindergarten at the first grade level, you're going to do well throughout your school term.
I agree 100% because all the state representatives and senators, state senators tell us, right here's the chart, Indiana spends 47% of its budget, $21.85 billion on K through 12 education. So on one hand, we should be spending our extra money on education. On the other hand, we're spending $28.8 billion, and here is the most dollars ever for K through 12 support is an increase in funding. It's $9.65 billion in 2027. Next year is $9.03 billion. Where's all the money going? Because I don't think we're getting the bang for our buck here. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, public and privately. These teachers need to be paid. They also need to be verified that they're doing the job way more than they're being paid now. They are the front line of teaching our kids. And I'm sorry, we don't pay them a pittance for what they should be getting paid. And give the best.
One of the problems is we pay them for 9 months and not 12. And that could cease if we had a mandatory summer school. What we want out of that mandatory summer school is the teachers that teach arithmetic, that teach math, and teach some of the upper level math classes. We also want the teachers that teach English and that teach reading and writing. We need to do all of those things, and you'll find that the teachers that are really contributing academically will be in there if they want to be. If they don't, okay, we can pay them for 9 months and let them have a vacation. But the summer school should be, they should be volunteering to do that.
Yeah.
If they don't want to do that, okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that.
We know what happens typically when you pay people more money. You get people and better talent. We did it in Michigan City with the lifeguards. We were struggling to get any lifeguard, let alone good lifeguards. We were training lifeguards. And we jacked the price up, and guess what? We were flush with lifeguards. Same with police and fire and EMS. When we passed the local income tax, safety tax, we probably increased our chances of getting better police, firefighters, and EMS people.
And we stopped losing them to others.
And we stopped losing them to other people. We would train them, and they would go to somebody else paying them more money. Now we kept them here. We kept them home. We kept them living in our community. We kept the money in our community. You know, you get what you pay for. Well, usually you get what you pay for. Typically, you never get what you don't pay for.
In this particular brochure, it says, Indiana ranks second in the nation in Forbes, best state to start a business.
Yeah.
If that concept exists, we should be overflowing with business opportunities in our state. What's the problem?
It's not a problem for the state of Indiana. It's a problem for the northern part of the state, Lafayette North. If you take Indianapolis as the center point, and you look all the way around,
west part of this.
well, let me get to the other side. You look all the way around that circle, Lafayette, Muncie, Anderson, all of those communities are doing very well. And because they've
Southern
got,
Indiana.
well, they've got solid education systems. Now, the other part of the state that's really doing well is northeastern Indiana, Fort Wayne, and all of that area throughout that part. Solid in the agricultural area because of the Amish and the Mennonites, who, by the way, have a really good education system, even though they don't send their kids to public schools. They treat them, they educate them on their own, and they're very well educated for what they do. But you also have a biometric situation in that Fort Wayne area. You've got Stryker, you've got Biomet, and you've got a number of other corporations. If you look at our hospital, and a lot of the machinery that's in there, it's Stryker, made right here in northeast Indiana. It's that part of the state to South Bend that is doing pretty well. When you get South Bend east of here, or west of here, you've got some problems.
Based on this report, the unemployment rate in Lake County is 5.8%, but yet in this same report, business ranks second in the nation in Forbes, best state to start a business. I mean, we've got areas in northwest Indiana, we've got a lot of ground. Why can't we put some development on that ground to make something happen?
We're going to talk about this in one of our meetings because one of the things I was looking at was the old Pullman South Yards. Now, you guys keep telling me that there's too much water out there, we gotta do things to dewater it. Pullman was at their height in the late 1940s, early 1950s. They were running 54 boxcars a day out to that Pullman South Yards. They had a big, huge paint line out there. Those cars weighed well over 2 tons, and they didn't have any problem with water. Where the hell did this water problem come from?
So I did a little research.
Don't start me on that.
I did a little research, and I thought we should run our water west down out the Black Ditch. But if you look at the topography, which is available if you really want to know, there's ways to look at free data, free topography, look at stormwater drainage and stormwater pipes in Michigan City. It's all available publicly online if you know where to get it. But it looks like it kind of hooks around and it goes up the west side of the old Pullman Yards, and then it runs back down, which would have been a creek back in the day at what, 6th Street?
Yeah.
And it hooks back around and goes into Troker. I never knew that until I looked at the whole lay of the land. I thought we go west. Looks like you can go west and then back northeast around the old Pullman Yards.
The map that you provided me, Tony, that showed the ditches, that showed the moraine from South Ohio Street up Franklin Street, specifically spells that out, but yet you've got the sanitary district trying to improve the sewer to nowhere, that it's at the same elevation as Strebel Pond, and it is included in this moraine, and water runs downhill every place else but in Michigan City.
Well, I looked at it because we have potentially, and what's just west of the Pullman Yards and the low area right there with the baseball field, the Indiana prison. And there is going to be a lot of storm water come off that development when the day it's developed. So we shouldn't just look at going right down the Black Ditch, and there is a very large stormwater system that runs, I believe, under 6th Street. It runs down Wabash, very large, big enough you could walk it. It's huge. Seen it myself. So maybe we ought to look at making some of that water going down there, because that would help those developers out at the prison site when they're trying to get their water to go somewhere, and Michigan City would say, we're ready for you, your business or whatever you're going to do here is ready, we have it set up for you, the stormwater system is designed and ready to go.
On that point, before I came here utilizing my cane here, I watched the sanitary district meeting, and part of that meeting, there were a lot of new faces on the sanitary district. Yagelski is gone, and there are not a lot of new people. And I see, in my mind, a shakeup in the Michigan City Sanitary District that may bear fruit. Because I've talked with Tim Warner, the city engineer, and he is concerned with the water flow running to the west in his community. That water flow running to the west affects Marquette Mall office building that they want to put up for sale and rehabilitate and put in houses. That entire area, the water flows to the west. From 68 foot, Strebel Pond is 68 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. The ditch to nowhere, Lafayette Storm Sewer, is 60 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. But yet all of the water that encompasses the ditch to nowhere runs to the west. Can't rational minds understand?
Time out. Let me make my point again. It doesn't entirely run all the way to the west. The Pullman South Yards, it somehow goes around.
Yeah,
now, how
it
in the
hooks back
heck
to Troker.
does that happen?
I've got the ridge line here, and you will see.
I worked out there on that Pullman South
You
Yard.
will
I
see,
know what happened.
you will see that this blue line that we've got here is the ridge line for the water running to the west. That goes all the way to Elk Street and East Barker. Then it comes back to Pearl and 11th. Then it goes back to Tennessee. And then it meanders, well, it goes to Lake Michigan. But this whole, roughly
Where is the
one-third of
Pullman
it,
South Yard on that?
it's in here.
It goes this way and it hooks back here too.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
How old is this map, Tony? You gave it me. 1936?
But it has the 1936
1986.
ditches on. No, it has the 1936 ditches on it.
Yeah, 36. I'm just saying, why can't rational minds wake up? We've got, well, we don't appoint the right people to the various boards that know information as to the layout of the city of Michigan City.
Well, the point I want to make is that, starting with the Pullman South Yards and all the dewatering that has to occur, but the Pullman South Yards is really not in that. What we need is a strong industrial area. And that would be a strong industrial area if you guys could figure out how we can get that water out of there that is really hurting that Pullman South Yards
Right here,
development.
right.
See that right here, this pipe is going here to here. This pretty big system right here is connectable. And here, but my point is this west side and the northwest side of Michigan City is 99% of your growth opportunity
Correct.
in the next
Yeah.
10
And
to
you
15
should start
years.
now to
Yes.
resolve the problem. This problem is 4 or 5 years down the road. And how I suggested to start this concept is by just cleaning out ditches to make Mother Nature apply her science so that water runs downhill. But it is not logical in regards to the Michigan City Sanitary District. They're oblivious to this concept.
Well, you look at some communities did this and some communities still talk about this. You create what you call a regional stormwater storage area. And you dig areas out and make ponds and nice areas for parks and lakes and streams and really nice park areas. And you bank that for the development, which we know is coming on the west side, so they don't have to worry about where they're going to do stormwater ponds in their development. You already have it. They will pay you for it because they can develop the areas that need developed that would be the highest tax revenue generator, while you dig a stormwater pond in an area that's not the highest tax revenue generating area, and you both win. But you have to get way ahead of that.
When I was on the city council, John Pugh was the city planner at the time. And he would talk about retention ponds and different ponds. You see behind Citizens Horizon Bank, there's a puddle of water. Well, that was done intentionally to control the water so that they could build the bank. But there was no ingress or regress or whatever from this pond of water. It just sits there. And when you look at the aerials, you'll see ponds of water all throughout the west side of Michigan City. If the ditches were cleaned out and if the water was allowed from these retention ponds to flow into the ditches, to flow into Black Ditch, over a period of time, something would happen. I presented pictures to the sanitary district of pictures that I took in 2022 about Monon Ditch being full of water. I went out there today. The water level is still high. Almost 3 years later, the sanitary district did absolutely nothing. They did tell me that they had something to do with White Ditch, so they took an effort to clean out White Ditch area to possibly resolve this Tryon Road development project. Well, that's all well and good, but why should we be so reactionary when this concept encompasses a third of Michigan City's landmass that is basically polluted with water, groundwater? And we could alleviate that through this 68-foot drop in elevation. But I guess maybe the sanitary district can't read a ruler and has no concept of what 12 inches consist of or 8 foot consist of on a downward slope.
I got your full of knowledge and
Nah, don't even talk to me.
and ready to go because technology, that map is getting old, right? And that map came with the best technology we have, and we have newer technology.
Yep.
That's why I was looking at it, because we have newer technology and data that's available publicly to anybody.
Well, not the sanitary district.
And you could look at this
No.
and you could do an analysis, which I think is a lot of fun, because I know the past engineers didn't have that kind of information. They have what we call quadrangle maps with every 5-foot contour intervals. Now we have stuff with half-foot contour intervals. We can look at things in a totality of circumstances that's just amazing.
The only thing the sanitary district has are computerized visual sheets of the layout of the streets and of the land. It does not identify the topography of the land. The topography of the land for the land here on the west side of Michigan City has probably been there for, what, 10 million years? It's about time you get into the forefront. Get into knowledge. You've got individuals that are sitting there that are twiddling their thumbs over a $50,000 contribution about patching a hole in a street. If the ground was dewatered, that water underground would recede, and when they did street repair work, it would be accomplished properly, and it would be accomplished properly on solid ground, and the streets wouldn't have to be refurbished a year and a half from now. I mean, it does not make sense. But yet you've got a group of people sitting there trying to accomplish something. I think the only thing they're accomplishing in my mind right now, there's one individual who isn't. He's got his head screwed on straight. But all the rest of them are not knowledgeable of what's going on.
It's a tough thing in my industry because I don't know, maybe 10, 15, maybe 20% and growing people understand the data that's available to them and the technologies that are available. I usually try to learn, I seek it out, I spend time figuring them out, learning these programs, learning what I can do with the data, and then it helps me in my private industry help people make better decisions and make more money. So that's why I do it.
The issue that I'm describing to the viewing audience, I've been on it for 45 years. And nothing's been accomplished in regards to the water flow going to the west by anyone. Jim McCarty tried a little bit earlier.
He did.
He did try. He did try. Mike Cuss, he tried.
He did.
And he found out it was economically unfeasible for this to happen. The sanitary district gets $500,000 a year to clean out ditches. They're not doing their job. Why don't they wake up?
Well, not just clean them, they can maintain them.
That is correct.
And cleaning isn't just all maintenance.
Let me start with this thought. Somehow they need to develop an overall plan to do this. If you just start, okay, we clean out these districts. If we do this, we do that. You're never going to get there. You've got to have an overall plan as to how you're going to capture.
Slowly and surely. You'll get done in 20 years.
A little bit every day. Oh, we're getting down to 2 minutes?
Yeah, and before I don't get a chance, I want to push it again. These are available. They're what to do in Michigan City and the Port, or visit Michigan City and the Port. They show, it's a 2025 visitor's guide. Got all kinds of things. You can take this visitor's guide and stay busy just doing the things in here from now until next January the 10th. So pick one up. Many restaurants have them. The Visitors Bureau has them at the old Marquette Mall. And I think you're going to find that it's going to be very helpful. It's got things to do for you, and it's got things to do for your kids.
Yeah, and don't forget this Saturday, the 26th at 4 o'clock at the Chapel of Resurrection. If you like John Philip Sousa and his accounting of march music and so on, Jeff Dobler with the Valparaiso Symphony Orchestras are having a John Philip Sousa program starting at 4 o'clock at the Chapel of the Resurrections. It's free. Just show up. It's free if you enjoy. Oh, we got the middle index finger going on right now. And Poppy Day. Poppy Day is coming up on May the 26th. That's Memorial Day. Oh no, May the 24th. That's Memorial Day, and then the 26th is when a municipal band will play at the cemetery. Hey,
read us out.
Goodness gracious, I don't know. Oh, hey, like I said, I wasn't feeling good today. I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements or criticism of this show is greatly appreciated. Please contact show's co-producers Bob Pollock, Dave Bieler, or Tony Hendricks with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbieler1@hotmail.com, or Tony at email@yahoo.com. Or you may direct your ideas for any future shows to our one and only Pain in the Neck staff writer, Sarah Bellum. Showing our program will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m., also Monday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m., and numerous times throughout the week when Andy finds some dead time to fill. That's us. I want to thank everybody. Oh, and don't forget, Navigate News and Views. If you miss a program, we are on YouTube under the umbrella of Navigate News and Views. So we've got probably about 15 or 20 programs in the can. There are occasionally a few people watching, I noticed. So I want to thank everybody for watching, and make it a good day.